Welcome to the Wordy Pair Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
Hello and welcome. We are the Wordy Pair, and we have something actually kind of weird for you today. Maybe you should do a little bit of background here.
Yeah, I have actually been interested in finding a copy of this for some time, and it was one of those things where it was like I wanted to kind of find it naturally, just like organic, find it in a bookshop, but there's so few bookshops, and there's only a few used bookstores nearby, and I might have been able to find this at King Books or whatever in Detroit. It never worked out. So I finally found someone on eBay that had a copy of something that for the longest time I didn't even know existed. And when I found out, it was like, yeah, I must have that.
Yeah.
I found the original story, the original book that the series MacGyver was based off of.
Okay, yeah.
And
so we've talked about it a little bit, and we've had a whole episode. Just to give a little background, you're a big fan of the MacGyver show from the 80s, yeah?
Yeah, I used to watch that show.
And we did a whole episode of kind of like our proto YouTube thing about the new MacGyver show that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's MacGyver in name only, for sure.
Yeah, it's Spyman. And it's one of those things where, I kind of saw this show a little bit when I was a kid, but I didn't watch it a whole bunch. But you were a larger fan of it, so, it's one of those things where, in the same way that I am about finding like a Nero Wolfe book or a video game art book, you are the MacGyver man.
Yeah, and it's important to note that this is the only book that was ever published with this
Which is
character.
really surprising, because it seems like it's the kind of topic that you could make like a serial set of novels off of, Like,
well, I think once the TV show took off, I don't know if the guy who wrote it lost it. It was written by a guy named Terrence Darrow, and it was originally published in Scotland, so the name Angus MacGyver didn't... It would, I guess for the time, it still might have been a strange... Like I don't know how many Angus MacGyvers there are in Scotland,
and it's kind of weird to publish we've talked a little bit about it, but it's like it takes place in America, right?
Yeah, it's really
and so like
weird.
I can't imagine that there's like a huge amount of popularity for American like spy books in Scotland itself. So it's surprising that the circumstances around this thing are kind of like goofy to me,
I don't remember exactly how it went. I think a long time ago I had read something about how the author was like, he didn't work for the military, but like he read a lot of things about, this was a Cold War era novel, right? So
yeah.
That was a big thing back then, and if there was one event that the entirety of the rest of the world was aware of, it would definitely have been the Cold War.
Okay,
and
sure.
So it's not too surprising, but I guess the author had something to do with, like, he knew a lot about intergovernment.
I just have to wonder if it's something to, like, well, like, I just have to wonder if it's like,
it's like an Ian Fleming thing.
That's what I'm thinking. Like it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes and Arsène Lupin, kind of like a rivalry thing there. And then you got Ian Fleming and this Terrence Darrow guy, and obviously the book didn't didn't break as many records as Lupin did, but it did get turned into a pretty amazing show. So
part of me feels like they actively tried to repress this book when the show came out, because the show was successful enough that it kind of just like nobody even knows about this book. If you ask them about MacGyver, it doesn't even exist in people's memories because nobody ever. I don't even think. Oh God, what was it? Because so Henry Winkler was the producer of MacGyver, and there was some legal thing that happened with the show and the author. I don't remember the details of it, but they actively like couldn't put his name, like they couldn't do the thing that says based on the novel by for that show for some reason, and
some kind of weird international rights thing or something.
Yeah, it was like they had permission, but he didn't. I don't remember if it was like he didn't like what they did with the character or what.
Oh yeah, I could buy that. Yeah.
And so he was just like, just do your thing. I want to be separate from it.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that you'll notice if you get yourself a copy of this book is that it's written in the Cold War period, but it's kind of written with more of a spy thriller feel to it and almost a noir sense to it, like a noir detective story.
Well, also, okay, so the MacGyver show had a lot of voiceover, and you get that in noir too, but like, MacGyver, the TV show's voiceover wasn't noir-like, I guess.
No, it wasn't, but there was the same thing in the books where his voiceovers were, it wasn't voiceovers, but
obviously.
He had narrations throughout the book that were written a lot more like an old detective show.
Sure.
There were a lot of things that
kind of a, what's his name? That famous noir guy. I always forget his name. Yeah, Marlowe. That's right.
There was I think Mr. and Mrs. Diamond, I think, were noir, and then there was Philip Marlowe.
Yeah.
I don't think Charlie Chan counts as noir.
No, I don't believe so.
I think those are the two big ones: is Marlowe no, wait. I think it was Richard Diamond and Mr. and Mrs.
There was a lot of noir.
Yeah,
I mean,
there were a lot of
downplay it.
But this was one that came out like 40 years later from all of that, and it was just someone that was writing in a noir style. I mean, I don't remember exactly where did I put it? I don't know the publication date, but it was early 80s at the very least. I don't think it went back to the 70s, so that wouldn't even been Cold War time, I don't think.
Well,
I don't know when Cold War was what, 60s to...
I mean, the Cold War was the entire period after World War II all the way up until 91, so...
Oh, well, okay, so I was thinking like 60s to 90s, and...
Well, I mean, there's different aspects of it, too,
and the
right?
thing is, the rest of the world wasn't really interested as much as it would have needed to be for it to, until like the 70s and 80s, so...
Yeah, I can see
even
that.
given that, like, the technology in this book is, definitely at least early 80s.
Okay.
So yeah, there were a few key differences, like in the original, or not the original, in the I'm calling the show original now. In the television show, MacGyver was kind of just a guy who ended up doing these odd jobs, and he was usually by himself. Now, this book actually did have a semi-love interest / partner throughout the story that there were never any more books than this first one, but judging by the way it reads, they were supposed to probably like have a partnership going forward where this woman named Lucy Gibson, who worked for a local law enforcement agency, aka the police. Yeah, right. She'd figured out that he was some kind of spy, and he ended up using her to get a lot of information. Well, they worked together to figure things out largely, and whereas
you told me that this not only has a more noir kind of style to it, but that MacGyver's character is a little different too, right? Like it's kind of like he's almost kind of got like a Sherlock Holmes thing going on. I don't know if that's like the British, the Great Britain influence or what, but you told me that MacGyver's a little bit more Holmesy in this one.
It's either, I mean, there's kind of a Sherlock Holmes, and whereas like he's kind of the Sherlock Holmes, Lucy Gibson does play her role largely as a Watson who's kind of impressed by the things that he's capable of. But there's definitely that aspect of it where MacGyver is a very, like, scientifically educated guy who solves a lot of his problems using clever tricks. Not quite to the extent that the show did.
Yeah.
And in a way, the book is a little bit more campy than the show was. The show wasn't really as campy as a lot of people seem to remember it being. It had a lot of camp to it, but for the most part, the things MacGyver did, it was not just him taking a paperclip and a rubber band and solving a problem. Like he would.
No, I mean, I remember in the episodes that I saw, there were a lot of like, oh, let's make a bomb, let's make a smoke bomb, let's make let's put these things together. But the things they did were actually moderately intelligent and kind of like, oh, this is kind of a neat idea. Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, like there was I think the first episode had a vat that was leaking acid, and he used a couple of chocolate bars to seal it up.
Oh, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I forget what he said was in the chocolate bars that will actually cause the acid to lose its corrosive agent.
Yeah,
but it's interesting that you could almost think that maybe because the author was in Scotland. Well, actually, no, I don't really know I'm assuming. Shoot, I don't know where Scotland Yard is. I always assumed it was in Scotland, but
Scotland Yard is in Britain. It's in London.
Yeah, I was going to say every show I've ever watched is Scotland Yard is in London. So like, I
don't
just
know how
realized
that works,
Yeah, I just realized that sitting here now that every time I've ever heard Scotland Yard used, it was always in a British show, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, Scotland is part of Great Britain, but Scotland is the northern chunk. So, like when you see in Monty Python them doing Scotland Yard, I'm pretty sure that's in London.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's like
anyway,
the United Kingdom and Scotland and one other country, I believe, are what comprises Great Britain, right?
Wales and England and Scotland and Northern Ireland, I believe.
Oh, and okay, I forgot about. Everyone forgets about Ireland. I just assumed that they finally
Northern Ireland.
I'm assuming that they finally liberated themselves.
Well, no. Northern Ireland is a different area than Ireland.
Is it?
Yeah. There's a little.
I'm learning a lot today.
There's a little chunk of the Irish island that is called Northern Ireland that is part of Great Britain, but Ireland is not.
When are the Danish finally going to conquer that entire area? That's what I want to know.
I think the Danish have given up on it.
Oh. What a bunch of losers.
I mean, they're Danes.
All right, well, we've been canceled by the Danes today, so moving on.
I think that's great.
We've probably also been canceled by Britain. I can see it all now. Like I'm a person that goes out and buys an atlas just to look at the maps, and yet I did not know that Scotland Yard was in England. So right now there's some hoity-toity Brit sticking his nose up at me saying, "Oh, these Americans wouldn't even be able to find England on a map."
Yeah. Someone spilled his tea. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm not worried about it. We could bomb that section of the map so badly that nobody would be able to find England on the map. So back at you, buddy. And anyway, talking about bombs, back to MacGyver. The thing about Lucy Gibson in this story is that she seems to... Okay, so she's like... They mention offhand how she's got like this rock climbing hobby for almost no reason. And it kind of made me wonder, because there is an episode of MacGyver that he has a friend who... she dies in the episode by falling off of a mountain, but they make a big deal about how they're friends and they always go mountain climbing together.
Yeah.
I think it's either the first or second episode where MacGyver's arch nemesis shows up. And
Murdoch, right?
Yeah, Murdoch. And he's like... He's being hunted by Murdoch in this episode, and it just so happened that this all revolved around him going to visit this mountain area where his friend had died. And I couldn't help but think that there might be some relation between, like, that's where the inspiration for that character came from, was Lucy Gibson, even though that's it. It was like 20 minutes of the episode even referencing her. But yeah, they have a totally like normal buddy cop way of them meeting, where she just happens to catch him doing different things throughout her investigations of what seems to be like some kind of international intrigue, but the police department is interpreting it as gang or mafia
Oh yeah. Well, you told me this is interesting because like you told me that it's about like the kidnapping of a Russian diplomat or something like that.
Yeah. So,
Which which
so you
is,
would
which is
think,
just bizarre to me because like that just seems like that seems really cloak and dagger compared to what the MacGyver show usually was.
yeah, and well, I mean, the thing about MacGyver, the
Yeah.
television show, was that he was always meant to be a spy. Like that was his background in the show.
No,
Was that
but
he?
I mean I just mean the tone of it, you know,
Yeah,
like
but like he would do things like that in the show. He would rescue people. He would be a guy that would go in and rescue like the daughters of diplomats and so forth. I'm pretty sure
sure.
there were a couple episodes like that.
Fair enough.
It was that was the whole thing about him. It's like he wasn't attached to any organization, but like there was like the Phoenix organization in the background, and he had a lot of friends
Yeah.
there, and he used to work with them, and his friend Pete was the director. Whereas in this show, you don't really get much of where he comes from. It's assumed he's CIA, judging by the way this goes, but he could probably be
Okay.
like, you could see it being like some kind of special homeland office that deals with international affairs.
So some kind of black ops kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. But that just makes the thing about they did have that whole thing where he wasn't against using guns in the book like he was in the show. I think they
Yeah.
kind of like added that for the 80s
Oh, you know, they had all
television
those
era.
they had all those rules for the TV shows in the 80s about like you have to have this message and that message, so
Yeah. And so he wasn't against guns, but he didn't carry a gun. And
okay.
they talked about that a lot. He uses guns twice in the book that I remember. But he
Okay.
doesn't kill anyone with them, and he doesn't really have one of his own that he's carrying around. So it's just you mostly Lucy being a police officer is just like, okay, there's a person with a gun, so we don't have to worry about getting into a firefight. We have
As we discussed in the episode about the new show, she's MacGyver's gun,
yes, she is, but not to the extent. Oh my
not
god,
the
that new
extent
show.
of the Spec Ops guy in the TV show.
Yeah, that new show was so bad. So what was his name? It wasn't Pete. Pete was the other
No,
guy.
it was Jack. It was the same
Jack
wasn't it
something like Dawson or
Jack Dawson or something. Yeah.
man, it's been too long since I've watched MacGyver.
Well,
I
he
can't
was
remember
based
his
on
name.
one of the characters from the old show. Just they
Yeah,
turned
in
him
the
from
old show,
like a
Jack was
regular
like
guy
this.
into Spec Ops and
Well, he
like,
wasn't a regular guy in the old show. In the old show,
regular-ish.
he was kind of a goofy guy that would show up,
Yeah.
and there would be a problem that was either his fault or he was part of trying to solve. But he's no MacGyver, and so he would enlist MacGyver or trick MacGyver into helping him sometimes.
Yeah.
And in the new show, they basically made this kind of quirky character from the old show into completely like almost no character except for
Like
his
a characterless gun for MacGyver to order to shoot people.
yeah.
Basically.
If someone needed to be shot, he was there to shoot them, and the only character
but
development he
we're getting
had.
too far afield here, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to the book. Just
Yeah.
basically, you don't have to watch the newer MacGyver show. It's garbage.
Yeah, don't watch the new MacGyver; it sucks. Watch the old MacGyver and just mentally delete the mullet, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, look. His is the most iconic mullet. I don't care what anyone
I'm not
says.
denying that. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people who
You're
see
just
a mullet
saying
and,
that
and
it's
recoil.
still a mullet.
Yes,
Well, I guess we've also been canceled by people with mullets, which is
that
about
one guy.
three
who,
people.
that one guy who put that. I've only done this once before. Bring your own weapons.
Oh, the safety
time
not
travel
guaranteed guy.
Yeah.
So we're canceled by that guy now. We can't go time traveling with him.
And we're still alive, so that means that the time travel doesn't work.
Yeah. All right. So Lucy is investigating the kidnapping of this diplomat's daughter as though it was a gang activity, and
Okay.
during her investigations, she stumbles upon someone who she thinks is related to this kidnapping.
Okay.
And she's like tailing this guy, and he's doing a lot of things that seem a bit weird. She catches him breaking and entering somewhere at some point, but she's just like, nah, I got to see what this guy's up to because I know he's related to this. Like she had too many clues that were pointing to him knowing people that were involved in the kidnapping. But she can't quite figure out why he's disguising himself talking to these people. It's like throwing her off. So so she actually becomes more interested in him than...
So she sounds like a pretty like intelligent character then too.
Yeah. I mean, Watson
Like, she's not
in
just a
Sherlock
Watson.
Holmes
She's making... Yeah.
Well, Watson wasn't an idiot in the books.
No.
He was basically there to be intelligent enough to interpret what Sherlock Holmes was doing throughout the books, so that it
No,
didn't
but
just look
I
like
guess
magic.
my point is that Watson didn't do a whole lot of deduction on his own, but she seems to be taking that role in stride too.
Yeah,
Which is nice.
yeah, and so it turns out the person she's following is MacGyver, and he's wearing all these disguises and meeting with all these different people, trying to gather information about what happened to this diplomat's daughter.
Yeah.
You know, Lucy ends up following him to a motel at some point, and she breaks in and she finds all this stuff that she's like, well, it doesn't incriminate him in any way. The only incriminating thing he's really done is breaking and entering. But like, she starts to get wind of something at the police station.
Yeah.
Where, you know, higher ups are like, don't follow this line of inquiry. And so she gets convinced, like, not too early, but maybe a quarter of the way through the book, she starts to see, this is probably a government agent of some sort.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, she's about to arrest him and everything, and then it finally, like, everything falls into place, and he shows her ID, and, you know, well, we can talk about that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So she becomes more interested in him than the person that she was originally going to try and follow.
Right.
And which, you know, is very lucky, because it turns out that he has found a lot of the information that is going to help them, which, you know, if that hadn't happened, this book would come to a screeching halt pretty quickly.
Right.
She finally confronts him in a coffee shop.
Okay.
You know, sits down and orders 2 coffees, and he has no idea who she is. And then she starts talking about all these different things she was watching him do, and, you know, flashes her badge, and she's like, so there's going to be an arrest here if I don't start getting some answers.
Yeah.
He has to kind of like hush her down. Like, people in the restaurant are just looking over at them, and it's like, it's like she places her handcuffs on the table at some point, and everyone in the coffee shop is just like, what the heck is going on here? And so he doesn't want to draw any attention to himself.
He's like, I don't know her. I need an adult.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's not. I don't think it was meant to be funny, but it was just one of them things where he realizes that, you know, there's people that might see this and like think he's compromised.
Yeah.
And so he has to show his ID pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so he was CIA. I forgot about that. His badge actually did. It was a CIA badge that he had with him.
Okay, cool.
Which, you know, I don't know how much Terrence Darrow knows about the CIA. I'm not entirely sure they actually carry that stuff on them when they're putting on disguises.
I mean, probably not, but like for the purposes of the book, I guess they... Was he in disguise at the coffee shop, or was he just like getting something to eat?
He was still in disguise in the coffee shop, but he was like he was done with the person that he was investigating. I guess unless you're going deep undercover, like if you're going to go somewhere with this person and take a car ride, you wouldn't want to have your ID on you.
Yeah, right.
Maybe he was just like having a conversation. Because we didn't get to hear all of the conversation that he had, because up until that point, it's largely Lucy Gibson. And like the opening of the book was one of the classic MacGyver narrations where it's like him telling the story, but then it cuts to Lucy Gibson, and you're just left like, okay, what happened to MacGyver?
Did they at least do it at a chapter break or what?
Well, it was almost like either a first chapter or maybe a prologue thing.
Okay,
there was a break, but it wasn't a chapter break.
Okay,
because that is basically like the beginning, and then there's a full chapter with Lucy, then there's a second chapter with Lucy, and then it gets back to MacGyver. And now, like, almost the entire rest of the book, except for one point at which Lucy and MacGyver get separated.
Yeah.
It's MacGyver doing a lot of his inner monologue noir thing.
Right.
Occasionally talking about, you know, sets of lockpicks that he trained with some random person. You know, he threw out a lot of names sometimes, or he would throw out like, my captain showed me once, or something like that, or a friend of his. It was a lot of that. So it's like a really vague history that paints a picture of a guy who was like really educated, like he was a university graduate, but then he ended up in this world of spies and learned a lot of the spy tricks. it's actually a pretty decent job of filling in a background for a character.
Yeah,
without
kind of like in like patches, so you don't get too overwhelmed with it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the book, which I don't think is as good as the show, it did a lot of what the show did, where it's like you learn little pieces of MacGyver here and there throughout episodes that kind of give you an overall image of who he is.
Yeah, sure. That's a pretty common writing technique, is to introduce those elements, bit by bit over the course of a story, rather than all at once and make it an info dump. Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the things that happens in the coffee shop, though, was like, as she's threatening this arrest, he does tell her that he's working for the government, and she doesn't believe him. So he initially impresses her with just as a complete breakdown of everything that she already knew about the person that they were investigating, and then like 10 times more than that.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And like information on where he had been that day and who some of his contacts were, and it's kind of done in a Sherlock Holmes way.
Okay, that sounds kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, he describes several things where he's followed this person through the city and seen them at this place, and this place is known for this person,
like a connection to this group or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of group and city club and money laundering connections, things like that. And so
it's clear that he's building a case, basically.
Yeah, and then he shows his ID, and so now she doesn't know what to do, because now she's like in the situation where she's basically blown the cover of an agent that has more information than anyone else, and yeah, so they kind of like play it off where he's getting in the police car with her, and she's got this partner in the car that doesn't get enough attention in the book. He basically exists to crack jokes about Russians and make a few pop culture references of the time.
He does a few things in the book. It's important that he's there, but like he's not much of a character. You kind of told me.
Yeah, he's overwhelmingly Irish too. Like I don't know why.
Oh, really?
I don't know why they went with the whole like New York 1940s Irish officer kind. Or was it 40s? What era was that? It was like.
I mean, probably anywhere between like the 1920s and 1940s. Yeah, that sounds a little out of place, but whatever. I guess it's the author's prerogative to create his characters.
I mean, he's in Scotland. We got to forgive him for something.
Yeah,
they don't even.
Maybe there's another element of like rivalry there or something. I don't know.
Well, they can't even keep their own yard in their own area. Where's Scotland Yard? Is it out back? No, it's in London.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that it would have been better if they had done more with the partner, especially given everything that happens in the book concerning her partner. That like I don't even remember his name. That's how little page time he had.
O'Malley.
No, I was going to say it's not O'Malley.
It's not O'Malley.
But you would think it was if you thought back on it. Like that was the first thing I thought was, wait. Well, I mean, he could definitely be someone called O'Malley, but he was not an O'Malley.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So anyway, they basically just climb in this car, and Lucy gives like this really quick breakdown to her partner of like, yeah, we need to trust this guy. We need to kind of like make it look like we're arresting him so that his cover's not blown. And oh God, what was it he said? It was the wording, like the way the guy wrote, he wrote the guy's accent out. So it was just whatever it was he wrote there. It was really funny. So I don't know. I'd have to look it up again, but it was nice. It was, it was
one of those,
again, overly Irish.
That really endears you to a character,
Yeah. Yeah, so they've got this guy that they're both trying to investigate.
Yeah.
And this contact that he had disguised himself to talk to, when Lucy found him.
Yeah.
Had managed to get this name off of him.
Okay.
And it was Eugene Moreau.
Okay.
And one of the things that MacGyver had pointed out in the cafe was that he was this is an interesting name because it relates to certain paintings and a certain painter.
Okay.
Which, whoever wants to look
that up. I don't know
a
thing about paintings, so that could just be made up for all I know.
Yeah, that's
But I mean, maybe there is a famous painter named Moreau, or there probably is.
I mean, we'll see one that sticks out a little more later on.
Okay.
I don't. There must be a Eugene. Like Eugene is not a name that I normally associate with any painters, but the way it was described in the book was.
Well, maybe it's the name of the painting. I don't know.
Was it?
I don't know.
There was something about
I'm
like
guessing.
There was something about the painting, this painting that like it indicated that this was a fake name, basically.
Yeah.
So they've got this address, and they're going to visit this guy. Like,
well, you said it was like a doctor's office or something.
It was really weird. So like the guy that he was tailing had some dental work done.
Okay.
But it was like the people that were investigating him were like, no, he didn't actually have any dental work done, but he would, but like they found out that he was at this dentist's office, and MacGyver had weaseled this address out of him for this dentist's office.
Yeah.
I through a series of like cajoling and planting suspicion in this person he was investigating, he managed to get this address, and they go to they go to the dentist's office. It was a dentist's office, and he talks Lucy into breaking in with him, which goes against all of her policing instincts, as was the trope at the time, and kind of still is. Right. It's like, but I'm an officer of the law. I can't do this, which, in a sense, but, MacGyver...
But there's extenuating circumstances, so he managed to convince her? Does he convince her, or does he, like, how does that work?
He sort of convinces her. He explains a lot more of what's really going on, and how this is not just about a diplomat's daughter, but this is about a defector and trying to rescue someone so that this diplomat's daughter will not die and that this defector will not be assassinated.
So this is interesting. He's basically... I'm trying to think about this. Like, he's raising the stakes for the characters.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a clever way to do that, because usually like stake raising kind of happens in kind of like a third person sense, but it sounds like they kind of the author kind of, what's his name, Darrow, kind of like what do you call it? Like weaved it into the first person narrative, which is kind of clever actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're actually getting a lot of like MacGyver talking, when he first is talking about Lucy, he's kind of got this doubt and suspicion about her being with him now, trying to solve this. And so in his head, he's explaining to the reader, I kind of have to really talk her into this and let her know more than I really should.
Yeah.
And so he tells her basically everything that's going on. And so now she's in this position where it's just like, he says, you've either got to leave and not see me do this, or you stay and you get the information that you need as well. Mm-hmm, and it kind of occurs to her that MacGyver's like, I could see it in her eyes. She was working out the details of walking away empty-handed versus finding everything that she'd been looking for and being able to, one of those things where it's like she'd been on the case for a while and nothing had turned up yet.
Yeah, and so this is like offering her like
it's like everything is right behind this door.
Right. Oh, that's neat. I like that. It's a good technique.
Yeah, and so what ultimately ends up happening is this is the part where, I guess whoever read this book and decided it needed to be a television show, this is kind of where you start to see MacGyver doing a lot of things like, the way he breaks into the office is he secures some of the liquid nitrogen that's being shipped into this dentist's office and uses it to break the lock.
Okay. What's a dentist? No, well, whatever.
I have no idea.
I mean, that's really strange. Just like, I don't know, but there must be something to it. But whatever.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. But now that you bring it up, I'm thinking like, what is liquid nitrogen used for in a dentist's office?
I don't know. Maybe some kind of like anesthetic thing, or some kind of surgical thing. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, anyway. To be fair, I read it like a month ago, so I'm trying to remember. Like it might have been that. It might have been like that because they were in they're in the city, so maybe it was like he was he found a canister of liquid nitrogen somehow. I thought it said it was being shipped to this dentist's office, but it might have been being shipped to somewhere nearby. Maybe I've got that wrong.
Fair enough.
But either way, he freezes the lock and breaks it so that they can force entry.
Yeah.
And you kind of get...
Well, does he break the lock, or does he kind of because you could use liquid nitrogen to break the lock, but you could also maybe do a trick with like thermal expansion or something, or I don't know.
It was something like... You're the physicist, so you would understand this better.
Yeah.
I know I've seen people in movies where they'll freeze locks and break them, so that's what I'm thinking of. But it was like, the way it was described was like, freezing the area of the lock and then jimmying the door.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm imagining, is that there's some kind of like all the locks have all these interconnected parts, right? And so if you can selectively hit part of one of those parts with cold, you might be able to shrink it enough with thermal expansion or thermal contraction, I guess, to get it to kind of click over to the thing. I don't know how the author described it exactly, but that sounds like, that's clever, because that way you don't leave, because my assumption is that they're trying to not leave too many traces that they're there, And liquid nitrogen would be cool because you could shrink the piece, get through the lock, and then the piece, once it got back to normal temperature, it would just work like normal again. I don't know. There might be a way to do that, but
I'm not really sure how much care was taken for them trying not to be found or not based on
you think so?
What I read, but it kind of sounds like, so basically it wasn't just him using liquid nitrogen. It was written in a way where it was like there was more to it than that, kind of like MacGyver doing something in one of the episodes of the show.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what happened. Maybe it's more like what you're saying, but it was something to do with liquid nitrogen, and there was a good paragraph of explanation of why this was going to work.
Uh-huh.
And
it sounds cool. It sounds it sounds clever. I like it.
It also it's interesting to point out that he's not quite as successful all the time in the books as he is in the show, although usually when he's wrong about something, it's to some comedic effect, so Lucy could be like, well, here, let me handle this.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a good example of it, at one point he's he actively has a lock picking kit, and they're trying to get into this filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And she basically just walks up and pulls the bottom drawer out.
Mm-hmm.
And then jimmies the top drawer that's locked and pops the lock out that way.
Oh,
she's like, most of them are just, she said something like, most of these are just a metal bar twisted up. And so after a while they get old and they don't twist all the way. So you can basically, shake them and pull them and it'll bend the metal a little and you're good.
Oh.
And so they didn't care too much there about leaving evidence that they were there. But to be fair, they were in a hurry and trying to stop an assassination. So
That's fair.
So they go through these files and they cannot find the name. I forget the name of the person that was involved in the kidnapping and so forth and all this other stuff, but they're looking for that person's name. Yeah. And finally MacGyver lands.
You mean the Eugene Moreau guy or somebody else?
Well, yeah, they're looking for Eugene Moreau, and
right.
They can't find him in this file anywhere, and this is where MacGyver's like, look, I had my suspicions. This Eugene Moreau is not a name I'm too familiar with, and I know a thing or two about a bit of art, and it was so and so, this painter that did this painting, and so he's digging around, and he's like, and here's a file with the name Chandler Kincaid.
Yeah.
Now, what are the odds that we've got two names that are connected with very famous painters and paintings?
Yeah.
So he pulls the file and they're looking through it, and he gets a lot of information about where, they get social security numbers, and they've got a bank card, and it was a check number.
Yeah. You don't usually leave your bank card at the doctor's office.
Well, like a number, but
yeah.
People didn't use bank cards as much back then. It was like a routing number for a bank.
Yeah.
And they have everything short of a photo.
Uh-huh.
But, now they've got definite stuff that links back to a fake ID. And at this point, these two have to split up because she's going to go run back and, look up, who these actual people are that they're digging up. And he's sending this information to someone for his agency who's going to look into where else this person has been involved. There's a lot that goes on where there's information going back and forth at this point of the book. This was like the boring part of the book where you're waiting for a lot of information to come back, and Lucy is off on her own adventure, and so she gets another chapter from her perspective, and then it goes back to MacGyver after that. But like, it kind of pulls you to where you're waiting on all this information. This was probably the funniest part. You're waiting on all this information to come back, and there's like a conversation in MacGyver's head about all these different links to these different people, and then the next chapter starts, and he's on a boat putting on a diving suit. It's just like, they didn't even tell you how much of that information finally told him where he needed to be. They just tell you that, it led to this boat with this name on it.
Does he voice over it or I mean, narrate it a reason? Or, is it just kind of cut?
He narrates, like, opening into the story. He opens by talking about the annoyances of putting on a diving suit and the ways that you have to use a boat so that it won't be seen by like enemy spies. You like the ways to make it look like you're just an innocent sailor.
Yeah.
He has like 3 pages worth of just all that.
Oh, okay.
And then he starts to explain that the information came back and it linked to this person, who linked to this person, who linked to a place at the dock, who linked to a boat. Here's a name for a boat, and here's another name for a boat. And then there was okay, so this was the most confusing part of the book, because I read 3 different times how these 2 boats were connected, and how one was a fake and one was the boat that they were actually looking for. And the explanation that they gave for MacGyver figuring out which of these boats is the one that he's supposed to be looking for had to do with a random photograph that they had just happened to stumble across at this guy's motel that neither of them thought much of, but he had apparently seen it for a second like Sherlock Holmes and remembered it was there.
Oh.
And it still didn't make sense that it was like, and this indicated that it was this other boat that wasn't at the dock, but was actually coming into the dock that day.
Oh, jeez.
So
it sounds like a mess.
That part of it, like, I seriously, like, I want to believe that somewhere in there was something that really explained it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some connection to Scottish folklore that I don't know that would make it crystal clear.
The Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, but for everything in it, it was just like, no, it's just, there's no answer there. He just said, it's this boat.
Well, here's A, B, C, that means D. It's like, wait, no,
like I think I actually laughed out loud a little bit after like
that's
the third time.
That's not how syllogism works.
Oh, it was great though. So now he's getting ready to, like, he has this ridiculous plan. And if you want to talk about like the difference between the show and this book, this is like the corniest plan I ever heard, especially after someone just gave you 3 pages of how you're supposed to be stealthy, so you're not noticed by enemy spies.
Right.
His plan is to pretend that he's doing some offshore diving, latch onto another passing boat, to try and catch this giant boat that he's going to use magnets to climb. And they just sort of hand wave this all away as, the CIA has these tools that they let you use to do these kinds of things.
How do they work, right?
Yeah, it's basically what happened. And for as corny as that is, still not as confusing as the 2 boats thing.
No, fair enough.
Like, if you want to understand just how confusing the 2 boats thing is, try to figure out what the deal was with the 3 seashells and Demolition Man. Just as confusing.
It's deliberately vague, or maybe not. Who knows?
Maybe not deliberately. I got the feeling it wasn't deliberately. I almost feel like if I went over it with a fine-tooth comb, it was just worded in a really poor way to where it
I can see that happening. Or like the author's like, where it makes sense to the author, and then he kind of forgets to add a couple of details to the actual. I mean, I've done that before myself, so
yeah. It's
this is one
like
of those
that.
things we've discussed this before, right? But like, if you are being subtle in your writing, you need to be very careful about that, because people will not pick up on subtlety very frequently, and that just might be what happened here. Or maybe there's something that he knows about boating that you just don't know, or something that
could be it. I mean, I am not very I'm not very knowledgeable about boats at all. Like, I can tell you that
Yes.
they float sometimes,
Usually,
as
if you're
long
lucky.
as long as it's not like a DEI engineering project, it usually
Yeah, yeah,
floats.
yeah.
But yeah, so so those are the two most ridiculous things I think that happen throughout the book. There might
Yeah.
be one or
There
two
might be
more at the
more,
end.
but
I'm
whatever.
not going to spoil everything about the book for anyone who might want to read it.
Sure.
So yeah, so he's like fully clothed under a diving suit, apparently,
Uh-huh.
because he does eventually take the diving suit off and he's got his clothes back on.
Oh,
Uh, and that can work. Don't get me wrong,
yeah. I
because
mean,
like
they make dry suits. Like those are a thing. It's just
yeah, like
that,
deep sea
they're a lot
diving in
less.
the Antarctic, you usually have a jacket on underneath. So,
Yeah.
well, not deep sea diving, but like diving in the Antarctic, you would
Well,
have
no,
a
I mean they
jacket
make
on.
dry suits. They make suits that are just watertight that you
Yeah.
don't get wet in, and it's just those are a lot less common.
Oh, okay. So no, I actually forgot. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
because this was a very MacGyver moment on the boat. It wasn't
Okay.
something that the CIA had given him.
Oh.
He actually took fishing sonar, took it apart, and
Uh-huh.
and like used the magnets in the fishing sonar to create hand clamps to climb the side of a boat.
Oh my god.
I totally forgot about that.
That's a little that's a little far-fetched, I would say.
Yeah, that is more far-fetched than like there's maybe one thing in
Yeah.
all of the MacGyver episodes that I can remember that I've ever seen, and I've seen all of them.
Uh-huh.
But of the
Yeah.
ones I can recall, there's only one thing I can think of that's more ridiculous than that.
Yeah.
And it was the time that he weaved a hose through a ladder so that he could use a fire hydrant to blast someone off of a roof, which I'm
Uh-huh.
pretty sure killed this guy. But the reason he did all of that was because
Yeah.
he didn't want to use a gun and shoot the guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he actually, in that episode, he takes the gun and uses it to loosen the fire hydrant that's connected to the hose.
That sounds extremely dangerous.
Yeah, and it just
Ricochets being a thing.
well, he's also got this ladder braced so like this hose is 10 feet higher than him, and I just get the feeling that if it's enough to blast a guy off of a roof, it should have rolled back.
Oh yeah,
onto
like
him.
the torque on that is crazy, right?
Yeah, because he's like not even like holding it at the top; he's holding it like
Right.
below center, so it should have bonked
well,
him
I
on
mean,
the head
if
at
it
the
has-
very least.
That's hilarious, actually. I've never seen that episode, but like I can tell you already from a physics perspective, like torque is force times distance.
Well,
And so if you have like a 10-foot ladder and you have enough force at the top of that 10-foot ladder to knock someone off of another ladder somewhere else, you're not going to be able to hold that ladder from the bottom.
Yeah, and it's not even a matter of like we don't need a physicist to tell us this one. The last time I saw that episode, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I still remember looking at that and being like, "This is absolutely stupid." Oh, okay. So let's see. Where do we leave off? He's getting on the boat.
You were talking about the boat and getting onto the boat with the electromagnets from the fishing sonar.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So like I kind of skipped over
Yeah.
the part. So like there was a lot of downtime where he was waiting for this boat to show up, and then he was trying to put himself in the line of traffic to where he'd be able to use another passing boat to catch this other boat, which I kind of feel like you would not want to be swimming near a giant boat and relying on magnet clamps to climb up the side.
Hey, it's a spy book, what the hell.
Yeah, Ian Fleming, Terrence Darrow is not.
Right.
But during this downtime, he's talking in his head about how it all came down to a double agent that is arriving on this boat, and he's the target of an assassination. So there's going to be a bomb on this boat. So now we're magnet clamping ourselves to the side of a boat that has a bomb on it. Personally, I think
and like a double agent inside, right?
Yeah, I don't know why they're not helicoptering in on this one, but apparently everything is up to MacGyver in this book.
Well, I mean, the helicopter is a pretty obvious thing. So if you gotta do things stealthily, you're gonna want to take apart a fishing sonar, and make electromagnets to climb up the side of the hull. That's totally how you want to do that.
I feel like that's the part of the book that someone read before they were like, we need to turn this into a TV show.
Well, it's almost like surface level plausible in the sense that like those big boats that are like those giant metal hulls, they don't have enough people on them to like maintain a solid like security perimeter of everything. Like there's going to be a lot of areas on that boat that are not being supervised at any given time.
Yeah.
Which makes it reasonable for him to think, well, if I can climb up the side, I won't get seen as long as I'm careful, and then I can kind of dart between the what do you call it? The big rectangular things that they fill with cargo.
Shipping crate?
Yeah, shipping crates. Thank you. I had a brain fart.
It happens. Yeah, I've seen it done more cleverly than that. Like one
Sure.
of the Shadow novels had a scene where the Shadow swims his way into enemy territory, and there's no real way to get out of the water from where he is, but he has 3 rods in his cloak that he takes out, and they screw together, and they've all got little bits sticking out. So after he screws them together, it's got a hook on the edge. This is actually an old ninja tool, by the way.
Okay.
An ancient Japanese little tool that I forgot the name of, but it's got a hook on the end, and he hooks onto something, a fence or something.
Yeah.
The little rungs on the sides he's able to use to climb his way up out of the water. Now, I'll grant you I've got this
horrible image in my head of that game, the Bennett Foddy game.
Just the Shadow, like, constantly throwing himself back into the water.
Like just the shadow, like the bottom half is still the iron tub, but like the top half is the Shadow.
Getting over it with
Lamont
Cranston.
If there's anyone who's listening to this who does mods, that might be a great mod for that game.
Yeah, it'd be Getting Over It with Lamont Cranston.
Yes. Oh, and you could do all the voiceovers too from like the old radio show.
Just like Orson Welles.
Yeah.
he like falls down and you just hear the weed of crime bears bitter fruit.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough of that radio show that you could come up with a bunch of little quotes to little monologues or whatever whenever you like fall or something like that. I bet. Oh, that would be. Oh my god. I just had a wonderful idea.
I feel like I want to just take this entire recording and off on a tangent now, but
No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the tangent thing. It's just that like
it was a proper
the
tangent.
ideas fit together too well.
I want this idea to happen.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
I need to learn how to mod stuff. I've never modded stuff before.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's great. Okay, so back to MacGyver. So now we've got this whole plot where there's a lot going on at this point in the book because it's getting ready to close up. And I don't want to spoil all the details, but I do want to spoil what happens because it's really, really 1980s stuff. There's just a lot of like Russian spies and lots of people with guns and people riding motorboats on the water, chasing larger boats that, should be well defended but aren't. At this point in the story, Lucy is.
So she went off somewhere to make a phone call or something. This is hilarious to me.
Well, no, she goes back to the police station to investigate the real names that they came across.
Oh, okay,
in all these connections.
That makes a little more sense, sure.
Yeah, because like the police department will have these people on file, and that was the point at which MacGyver was like, "Well, yeah, but we're dealing with people with nicknames here too, so I need to get in touch with my people and find out what they know about people that have gone by these names."
Yeah.
So she's back at the police station, and you kind of get a sense that some of the higher up people know something more is going on, but they're not telling her, and so she starts looking into it on her own. With her partner sitting there like at a computer making his Irish comments to her in his heavy accent while she's looking
at a computer in the 80s? Oh god.
No, we're talking like you know how you had like the monochrome terminals?
Yeah.
Like I mean, we're talking like the technology they had in the MacGyver show at this point. So
like an Apple II?
even earlier, we're talking like stuff that would only let you like type something in and it would give you a string of characters back. Because they made a big deal about it, like this was the Irish officer is saying something about how technology has really progressed. he's in there, they're looking at this giant screen that's just like got monochrome text on it.
they're like wave of the future,
And he can't believe it can do things like store 6 kilobytes of data or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm reading this like, wow, this I mean,
he pulls out like one of those giant 8.5-inch floppies. He's like, this floppy,
I don't even know if they had that. Like there were punch cards on this thing.
50,000 things, and what he fails to say is that a thing is a single character.
I wish I could remember some of the lines he had. They were really corny. It was just, it was
corny in retrospect or corny at the time.
Corny at the time. He's being written as though he's talking with a heavy Irish accent.
Yeah. He's got some of that Lovecraft dialect in there or something.
It's like it was something weird, like something like, oh, you could store an entire book on this thing. It's just like comments
Great.
like that where he's like,
yeah.
He's basically selling people on technology that by the time I read this book was just like, I don't need to be sold on this. It was just it was really impressive to him at the time. Let's just put it like that.
I have a tiny box in my pocket that holds 150,000 or holds a million times more than the giant thing that you were working on, kind of thing.
Yeah. So she's basically just like typing in names and getting a line or two out of it, and he's just like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, we're gonna get caught. It's gonna be terrible." And
it's very hard to be like scolding and what's the word I'm thinking of? Like ominous in a thick Irish accent. It is what I'm learning from this.
Oh, well, what can you do? The old ones are, the old ones will be,
That's what we need. We need the Irish Lovecraft story.
I would listen to that audiobook every day.
Horror Babble would have some competition.
I mean, I've already established that my Irish accent is terrible, so I'm not going to be the one to do it, but someone out there needs to do that.
Fair enough. I mean, it might be better to do it with a really bad Irish accent.
That's what I was going to say. It was just like preferably someone who doesn't actually have that accent, who just knows how to speak that accent. So anyway, in the process, of them working at this computer, this other officer sort of inserts himself into the conversation, and in their efforts to keep him from finding out what they're using the computer for, they have to reluctantly agree to bring him along on part of their investigation because he's like getting too interested in what they're doing, and so now they've got this third wheel for no reason, and this character has absolutely zero character. He's basically just there to be an intrusion for the most part, but we'll get back to that.
Well, I mean, I guess he's pushing the plot, right?
Yeah, like they got to hurry up and get their information and go, and then they're...
It sounds clumsy, but like the kind of thing you might be able to get away with.
Well, it is, but there was some indication that Lucy got that someone somewhere in the police department at the upper levels might not have their best interests in mind, and so she realizes that they have to put in a call to the FBI, essentially.
Okay.
So she doesn't want to do that at the police station. So now we've got this ramshackle crew of 3 that takes off, and they make a phone call from somewhere. It wasn't a gas station. It was a payphone. That's right. Somewhere? Yeah. It was because
something that also doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. There were. So we're both old enough to remember that payphones used to be everywhere.
Yes.
And I mean everywhere. Like you can still see the outline and the wire hanging down from where the payphone was at my local 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And you can still see a lot of the like occasionally you still see one of the stands that held a phone.
Phone booths and collect calls used to be a thing, like a significant thing.
Yeah, like all the way up until like the early 2000s even.
Yeah.
I remember using phone calls. At one point before cell phones were something that everyone carried. If I needed to get in touch with my parents for something, I would have to call them collect on a payphone.
Yeah.
Because I was always too stupid to bring change with me. But, that's neither here nor there.
Well, I found a lot of payphones where the change thing just didn't seem to work. But you could always just go in there and dial collect, so whatever.
Yeah. 1-800-COLLECT.
Well, or what was the other one? 1-800-CALL-ATT?
I think
Yeah.
wasn't that one just for roadside service?
No. It was a collect call thing. I remember they had what's his name as the um they had a famous actor do the commercials for it back in the late 90s. You can look it up, whatever.
No, I remember it, but I can't remember the actor either. Yeah,
Uh
but yeah, nothing like talking about MacGyver to get us talking about things that existed in the 80s.
yeah, right.
Yeah, they were largely gone by like 2002, 2003 phone booth or
Right.
yeah, those things were like pretty much phased out. I think the last one I remember seeing in my city was like 2008, something like that.
Yeah, they quickly they quickly attritioned when they were no longer needed too.
Yeah, but
Like you would see some of those things, they would be so beat up. You were like, I don't think I want to put money into this thing because I don't know what's going to happen.
yeah, they were literally everywhere. Like almost every
Yeah.
storefront you went to, you could find a payphone.
Yeah.
But anyway, they make their
Anyway.
call to the FBI and they give them this information. They give them a location because this is definitely one of them stories where the FBI is going to arrive on time and be there to solve a problem, and definitely not
Yeah.
just show up at the end to do cleanup.
Right.
So they're now heading to this dock to meet this incoming boat because they're going to simultaneously be able to find the final link to find this diplomat's daughter, and they're going to stop an assassination, which they're not actually going to stop because they've already kind of said, oh well, this is up to MacGyver because there's no way we can stop this bomb on this boat now. So this agent is pretty much dead.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they don't know just how far MacGyver's gotten with his sonar fishing magnets and so forth. So
Mhm.
they're actually able to get to this dock and find where this small group of people have locked away this diplomat's daughter in a shipping crate, which, that never happens in any of these stories ever.
Right.
It's always shipping crates. Always.
Well, there's just so many of them,
And it's like it's in a secured area, and it's in an area where not a lot of people are going to go. And if anyone does go, it's just one of them things where it's like, yeah, this would be a very good place to do this if you could get away with it. So this diplomat's daughter is locked in a crate. I was kind of expecting that they were going to do this thing where, the officer that they brought with them just happened to be someone who knew how to operate a crane, and so they were going to move these crates and find the one that she was in and clear the area and be able to get her out. That did not happen, but that's what I thought was going to happen.
Like that, there was that scene at the end of the A-Team movie. Remember? Did you ever see that one?
Yes, I did. I don't remember what happened at the end though.
They did this. They did this. This is another '80s reference because the A-Team was an '80s show too, right?
Yeah, 70s,
or was it late
I think.
70s? Anyway, in the movie, which I thought was okay, they did like this cool shell game thing, but with shipping containers, which is just kind of a fun trick.
I vaguely remember that now. Yeah, while we're on that subject, the old A-Team show is kind of a lot like MacGyver, except instead of it being one guy who's troubleshooting a lot of problems, you would have these 4 guys that would basically run a bit of a con on other bad guys, and
Yeah.
they would at some point in the show they would almost always end up in a garage where they would deck out a van to do something like break down a barrier or help them escape through a warehouse or something. It was always, almost every episode that happened, but they were very clever about the things that they did, just like MacGyver in that show.
Yeah. Sure.
So actually, it's interesting to note that the show Burn Notice is very much a spiritual successor to MacGyver, much more so than the new MacGyver show.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a bunch of Burn Notice, and it's a very good show, and it did remind me a lot of MacGyver, although with a little bit more of a little less improvisation, a little bit more like character focus and like cloak and dagger spy stuff.
Yeah, it was, and a lot less of the we're not going to use guns. There were a lot of guns in that show.
Yeah.
But if you look at it like from the perspective of how this was a team of people that were largely fooling other spies and trying
Right.
to solve problems that way. It also is a lot like a spiritual successor to the A-Team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very good show if anyone's looking for some good watching. It's one of the last good television shows I remember. It was like
I heard that the last few seasons of it got kind of iffy, but
they
I
did.
haven't seen
I actually,
them, so I can't say.
I was never able to bring myself to watch the 7th season. The 6th season I didn't like that much. The 5th season was where it went downhill. I think everything up to that point was okay.
Sure.
And
it had its it had its ups and downs.
Yeah.
But like the first couple of seasons were absolutely really good for that show.
Definitely. And you'll definitely understand the MacGyver feel when you get watching it, and he's doing all the narrations throughout the show of everything he's doing. It's very, very MacGyver. Like, I really thought they were going to have Richard Dean Anderson on the show at some point, and it never happened.
Have him do the voiceover in kind of like a Wonder Years style.
It would be a show like that episode would just be competing voiceovers from the main character and MacGyver. Like they would keep interrupting each other.
I was thinking, like, what if Richard Dean Anderson played the main character in Burn Notices, but like as an old man reminiscing is what I was thinking.
Oh, that would be hilarious! Just like one episode far in the future.
Yeah, like in the Wonder Years, right? Because the Wonder Years was what's his name, the Karate Kid, wasn't it? And then
Ralph Macchio.
And then I must be wrong about that because I don't think it was Ralph Macchio, but it was like one really well known child star, and then there was the voiceover was done by an adult, as though he was reminiscing about his childhood. So you could do that, only you have an old man reminiscing about his old spy days.
Well, no, take it a step further and have it be like, somehow humanity is now in the space age, and just have it be like, this is Stargate now.
Oh God.
Which
it all goes full circle.
Yeah. But, I'm still amazed to this day that I did not watch a single episode of Stargate until maybe 5 years ago. Despite the fact that I knew Richard Dean Anderson was in it.
Yeah.
And I also really liked the Stargate movie back when it came out in theaters. So
I saw the Stargate movie. I played the Super Nintendo game, which kind of sucked. I never really saw any of the show.
When I did finally watch it, I think I watched about 5 episodes, and it was kind of neat. Yeah. Like, Richard Dean Anderson was almost playing MacGyver in a lot of parts in that show, which was kind of cool.
Okay. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it was...
anyway.
It was something I'm probably going to go back and watch more of. But, yeah,
I've heard a lot of good things about it like I've heard... So just another 3-second aside before we go back to the book. But like,
take 15.
I've heard a lot of... What?
Take 15 seconds. We're good.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. No, I was just thinking I've heard a lot of good things about Stargate SG-1. People saying, yeah, it's still good. And I've heard a lot of good things about Babylon 5, which is something that I never watched either. But
is that related to Stargate?
Apparently it's... What? No, it wasn't related to Stargate. I'm just saying 2 shows that apparently were really good that I never watched.
Yeah, I never saw Babylon 5 either.
Yeah, anyway.
So Lucy and the 2 police officers, they end up rescuing the diplomat's daughter. So once she's secured, there's this whole thing where
is she on the boat or she's somewhere else?
No, they're at the dock where this boat is going to arrive.
Oh, okay.
And so now there's like going to be this big police presence because they've rescued this person, and the police have to be there because there might be an explosion because they know there's a bomb on this boat. Meanwhile,
right, okay.
Meanwhile, you have MacGyver on the boat, and he's looking for this bomb on the boat. He's doing his voiceover talking about all the things he knows about boats, which I couldn't tell you if they were real or not, nor can I even remember what they were. But but he's like walking down this hallway, and of course there's like pipes kicking out steam at him, and it's just like, that only happens in the movies, doesn't it? Like, I know there's
it's not that it only happens in the movies, it's that like the pipes should be pipes. They shouldn't be leaking steam.
Yeah,
that's a bad thing.
Like pressure valves should be taking readings. They shouldn't be hissing at you.
Right.
But sure enough, it's like a steamy corridor on a boat, and he's trying to simultaneously figure out who this double agent is. They don't actually know what he looks like.
Okay.
Because just finding out that he was a double agent was something that took enough work, but then like getting the information from the CIA apparently was a no-go. It was like, but I'm your
Okay,
agent
yeah.
in the field. I need to know what he looks like. And it's like,
I
we can't show you pictures now because someone might discover who he is, despite the fact that they're trying to assassinate him, so they must know who he is.
yeah,
So,
that's bizarre, but okay.
so you know, on a giant boat, it's
Yeah.
like a freighter boat
Yeah,
that
right.
that is going to have lots of people on it. He somehow manages to within like running into 4 different people,
Yeah.
he bumps into the exact double agent that they're looking for.
Oh, wow.
And he figures it out by saying something in Russian, and
Oh.
he thinks that he's going to be attacked, that this is an assassin, and then MacGyver explains to him that no, his life is in danger, and come with me if you want to live, essentially.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so now this guy is like, well, we need to get off this boat.
Wait, hold on. He didn't actually say "come with me if you want to live," did he?
No. I think because that would predate that movie.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, we weren't sure what part of the '80s the book came out in, but like, if he said that, it would have to have been '84 or after '84.
I think
it was.
It must have been like
but,
80, 82, something like that.
Well, he didn't say it, so it's irrelevant. But
yeah, he did not say it. No, I was just
words.
Just making that reference myself.
Right. But it's like, it's timely, is the thing.
Yeah, he essentially told him, "Come with me if you want to live." But then it gets funnier because MacGyver has this moral quandary where it's like, well, there's innocent people on this boat. We're going to disarm this bomb. Now his objective for the CIA is to get this guy out of there and make sure he doesn't die, because he has vital information, which was supposedly at the beginning of the book going to be the whereabouts of this diplomat's daughter, but now it's just like all the stuff that you normally got in the 80s. It's like nuclear codes and this and that, and
oh god,
all these names of Russian agents that are in America. And MacGyver's like, no, we're going to stop this bomb and you're going to come with me. And he's like, I should leave.
Oh, God. I have to go now. My planet needs me.
And MacGyver's justification for this in his head is, if we leave now and this boat blows up, that's going to draw a lot of attention, and it will draw people in that are probably also watching to make sure this guy dies. And if they see a boat leaving, they'll assume it's us and they'll come after us. Whereas
that makes some sense, yeah.
Yeah, so whereas he figures if he stops the bomb, he not only saves all these innocent people, but
which MacGyver would do.
Yeah. I mean, he's not like without his morals in this book. I just haven't like his character's a lot lighter in this book than in the show, but it like you get the tidbits about his spy history, basically.
Sure.
And just very little about where he stands on a lot of things.
Well,
but
so this book definitely predates the anti-hero fiction time frame.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely a hero
guy, and that's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, in his head, he's rescuing the innocent people, and he knows that if anyone is watching the boat and they see that it doesn't explode, their first act is going to be to try and board the boat and find this guy and figure out what happened with this bomb. That
makes sense.
So they do.
And it makes some sense that he wants to keep the guy with him too, because, like, you know, you're safer with me than elsewhere, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, because you know, nobody. He doesn't know who exactly is on this boat. He just, you know, for all he knows, everyone on the boat is a spy, but he doesn't know that for sure. So he's not just going to leave the boat to blow up. So he's they find the bomb. I kind of felt like they just happened upon it. You know, like it's always funny because it's like it's never
like. What was there like this is a structural support thing, or was it literally just we stumbled on it?
They stumbled on it. I would like to think that it would have been a structural support thing, but it was basically something that was kind of tucked between cargo containers with a cloth over it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. Fine, whatever.
Very, very convenient in a lot of ways. It was on this.
You could get away with that in the 80s sometimes, you know.
Well, it's more convenient than that because they've got it on like this track thing that you can move around by hand. So it's kind of like the bad guys just carted it in there and nobody asked questions. Which
okay, fair enough, I guess.
Which works out pretty well. So they find this bomb, and MacGyver is looking over the different wiring and all this other stuff, and it's like there's a countdown and everything, you know, classic 80s tropes. And he actually can't figure it out. Like, he has a dialogue in his head talking about everything he knows about disarming bombs and how this isn't making any sense to him. and
Right.
he's looking over like the exposed electronics and what he could and couldn't touch, and then finally, and this is something that they actually did
in the show.
In the show. I'm convinced that they took it right out of this book
Oh,
because
really?
because there was a bomb on a boat in the show, and
Yeah.
it was down to like the
Uh-huh.
last couple of seconds.
Uh-huh.
And all it was were these two contacts that, when the timer reached 0, these two contacts were going to slam together, and they were going to
And close the
circuit,
and,
bomb
and
explodes.
detonate the bomb. Yeah.
So
Just pray that a moth doesn't fly in there in the meantime.
yeah, which this is pretty much
So we talked about this because this came up in our other episode where we were talking about the new show too, where I was like, well, it shows that MacGyver is clever. It shows that the bomb maker is not particularly clever, but it shows that MacGyver is clever.
Yeah, because he's looking over the electronics and he understands how all of it works, and he actually pulls out the crumpled paper.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was crumpled. I don't even remember him crumpling it anywhere in the story. But
he jammed it into his pocket.
Yeah. It was essentially described as the paper that they went through all that trouble to break into the dentist's office to steal.
Yeah.
From a file.
Yeah.
He pulls the crumpled paper, that was the word they used,
okay,
out of his pocket, and he unfolds it and sticks it between the two contacts. And when they come together at the last second, they close on the paper.
Oh, nice.
And they don't make connection. Yeah. And so the bomb is saved. And it's clearly got written on it. It's like the part torn off where it's like Charles Kincaid at the top.
Yeah.
And he writes something in Russian on the piece of paper, and they wheel it into an open cargo, a shipping crate, and close the door.
Okay.
Now, this is the part where it's like, kind of, what happens here is going to require a lot, and I mean a lot, of suspension of disbelief.
Okay, fair enough.
Because you end up, this boat makes it much further than it was supposed to, and now you've got these guys that are showing up on motorboats, circling a giant freighter, which apparently has no security, and nobody's calling anyone for help or anything, despite the fact that we know the FBI is on their way at some point.
Eventually.
Like, MacGyver doesn't know this, but we know as the reader that Lucy has contacted the FBI. They know there's a bomb on this boat, and now there's dudes circling this boat.
Not at all suspicious.
Yeah, so as MacGyver thought, there were people that were watching the boat to make sure it explodes, and now they're coming onto the boat. So MacGyver and the double agent basically run off and hide after moving the shipping container out of the way, and or moving this bomb out of the way and hiding it in a shipping container.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really play a game of hide and seek. It's just basically described how it's like, if there's one place I know they're not going to look, it's going to be in this area where there would be nobody but possibly the captain, and the captain has to park the boat right now, so the boat's, so the captain will not come here at all.
Right.
So you've got these guys that board this boat. Somehow either nobody sees them do it or they don't care because they're hiding their guns, but they're searching this whole boat. None of that scene really matters. They only had those guys on the boat to kind of create some tension for MacGyver and this double agent that's hiding with him.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the room was they were in.
Was it just the captain's quarters or something else?
It wasn't the captain's quarters, because I think he specifically said that they would definitely check there because if nothing else, they'd be able to coerce the captain into helping them. Or commandeering the boat. But they're not interested in commandeering the boat.
The captain's not going to be at the captain's quarters because he's parking the boat, was my point.
Yeah, but it was somewhere else. It was somewhere like the only person who would have a reason to go here would be the captain.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the captain's quarters.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, so they're pretty much just hiding while these guys are wandering the boat, and they can't find the double agent. They start to think that they've been fooled. There was something in there. There was something that was mentioned because they cut away. They were just focusing on these guys hunting for the double agent. They cut
away?
Yeah.
In a book?
Yeah, they did. They cut away. They MacGyver is not narrating at this point, because up until then it's first person perspective MacGyver.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. No, they cut away to this search for a double agent that these other guys are having, and it's third person perspective, where
sounds weird.
One of the guys is like, did the KGB get this wrong? Is it the boat that's docked that we're supposed to be looking at, or is this the boat?
Right.
And they're confused. They're like, this guy is nowhere on the boat, and the bomb's not even here. So now they're getting close to pulling into the dock. So they're basically going. I'm assuming that the plan, because they didn't explain anything after that. They went right back to MacGyver, but I'm assuming their plan is to come off of this boat and start looking for this guy at the dock.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's like this quick little quip about how the KGB is always screwing things up.
Right.
I don't understand why. Like that sounds like something an American author might write. I don't understand why a Scottish author did it.
Well, they were on the same side in the Cold War.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It was just amusing to me that it's just like none of this mattered to the story.
Yeah.
But then it ended up that it kind of did matter, because after they get off the boat, these guys see that there's a police presence there.
Yeah.
And they quickly withdraw into the boat, and they're like now they're trying to hide from authorities.
Yeah.
On the boat. And this is a part of the story that MacGyver and Lucy are not even aware of.
Okay.
So it's really, really weird how like I said, this is
bizarre.
This is the suspension of disbelief part.
Okay.
That I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like it's talking about these Russian agents that are like wandering this boat trying to hide. And conveniently after everyone that is innocent on the boat is off the boat, these guys are still on this boat, and they find the bomb.
Oh, God.
And one of the guys sees the piece of paper and sees something written on it in Russian. And he goes and grabs it and picks it up. And I guess it has the equivalent of gotcha in Russian. And the bomb explodes.
Oh, jeez.
I don't understand. Like how they were on the boat for a while. What if they had discovered that while MacGyver and the agent were still on the boat?
Well, not only that, but like MacGyver didn't just not use guns because he didn't like guns. He didn't like to, murder people. And here he's like, I'm gonna blow these guys up.
Well, okay, so in the book, it's more of like a Cold War thing where it's he's not expressly against killing the enemy. He mentions in several parts of the story, having been to places around the world and having to do things that he didn't like having to do, and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's like that whole part of the book is just like, okay, I was with you up until this, and now I'm really, really stretching to suspend the disbelief. But it's MacGyver. I'll let it pass, I guess.
I'm gonna allow this.
And this was the part of the book where they could have just left that out and left out the whole thing about the bomb blowing up and.
But they could have just left it deactivated,
and the FBI goes in and they take care of the bomb. That would have been fine.
Sure.
That part of the book kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
But then it got back to like a more normal sort of spy thing where they're getting off the boat. The double agent is with MacGyver. Lucy flags him down, and that's when they find out that the other police officer that inserted himself into their group is actually an assassin, or it was a Russian spy. And they got through to him and said, hey, this guy got through our, bomb and everything. We need you to get down there and finish the job.
Yeah.
And so, and in the saddest part of the entire book, Lucy is running up to greet MacGyver, and they're going to get this double agent into custody, and they're going to run off with him and get him to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
And
safe.
This officer pulls out a gun. And it looks like he's going to end up shooting both Lucy and the double agent, and it's friggin' heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Officer Not O'Malley takes the bullet and saves the day.
Nice.
And shoots the agent.
Yeah.
However, on a lighter note, Officer Not O'Malley lives. So
okay, that's good.
It was a nice way to end because the way that Terrence Darrow wrote it, it sounded like he died instantly, but then he's like, and then another shot went off, and it's like, oh, so the bad guys got the double agent in the end anyway. It's like, oh no, that's Irish police officer dude taking a shot while bleeding out on the ground.
Yikes.
And killing this agent. So that was actually kind of cool. I like how at the end of the book, the character that mattered least was like
the most important.
Was the actual hero.
I love it.
And to be fair, we skipped over a lot. There were a lot of clever things that MacGyver did throughout the book that I just, it was all just MacGyver stuff. Basically,
yeah, I mean, we you can go. If you're listening to this, you can go watch some of the MacGyver show episodes, the old ones, and get some of the idea of some of the clever things that he would do. So like we did kind of skip over that stuff, but that's all right.
Yeah, but like one thing I definitely want to say, and I can't think of a better way to say it.
Yeah.
I think I just, well, okay, so put it like this.
Yeah, sure.
For anyone who really wants to read this book, it's an okay book. It's not like it's bad.
Yeah.
But if you really want to read this book,
Yes.
the best place that you can get your hands on it is probably, I know for sure it's available on Amazon on April 1st this year.
Okay.
Happy April Fool's Day. What do you think? Did I set it up good? Did I?
I think that's reasonable. Yeah, I was gonna like close out the episode and be like, oh, by the way, everyone, before we go, this book isn't real and it doesn't exist, and we made it up for April Fools. Happy April Fool's Day. But you can,
if you're
yeah.
If you're looking to enjoy yourself some novelization of MacGyver,
you're gonna have to
some
write
fan
yourself,
fiction because there's no such person as Terrence Darrow. And Scotland Yard is definitely in London.
Yep.
And this was we wrote MacGyver fan fiction, didn't we?
We last week we were trying to figure out what to do for an April Fool's episode, and I was like, well, we could just like, and like we didn't want to write a book. So what we did was we sat for an hour and we just came up with details for a fictional book, and just kind of like in a Cliff's Notes kind of thing. And that's our April Fool's joke.
I'm trying to remember why we picked MacGyver. I know I know at some point I was,
because we didn't record that part.
Yeah, it was but it was like all last because we actually we had like 4 different ideas.
Yes. And
one of them we ran out of time for, and the
yes.
other 2 were okay ideas, but then like at the last minute, for some reason we were talking like, about let's idea where we were going to write a whole book and then review a book that was written under a pen name that's a really bad book.
Yes.
And somehow that turned into, hey, let's make MacGyver fan fiction and pretend it's real.
All right. Well,
I'll tell you one thing though. I felt like I was doing a pretty good job of winging it right up until the whole thing where it's just like, no, it wasn't the captain's quarters. Like I actually had no idea where they were hiding on this boat. So I was just like, I'm just not going to say where I'll pretend I forgot mostly where it is.
No, that's fair. That's fair. There's lots of rooms on a boat where the captain might go. That makes sense. No,
other than that,
I was trying to figure out. You went dentist, and we had gone dermatologist, which made a lot more sense.
I was looking at my notes, and I still had dentist written.
Yep.
I realized that after you brought up the liquid nitrogen, so I bullcrapped that whole thing about how, I think that he might have just found the containers being shipped to some other building because they're in a city, that kind of thing.
That makes sense.
We winged a surprising amount of this in the end, even though we have like a whole 2 pages of notes here.
Only 2 pages of notes, and we ended up with an hour and a half of a fake book.
Yeah, and we had like I messed up Chandler. It was Chandler Kincaid was supposed to be the first name we did.
Yeah,
because Kincaid
no, you did it right. Eugene Moreau was the first one, his spy name, and then Chandler Kincaid was the second one. The problem was that later on you called him Charles Kincaid, but that's fine.
Yeah, I did.
Slip of the tongue. Top of the morning.
But I read the book a month ago, only not really. So how would I remember?
Exactly. Oh, good stuff.
God, that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah, this is why April Fool's episodes are fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do even better next year. We might
actually.
I don't want to. I don't want to. Well, yeah, there's that. I didn't actually mean to mention that, so I kind of ruined that. But people will forget by then.
But I mean, like, there'll be more. There'll be so we just have this episode. There will be more lead up if we actually decide to create a book. Oh man.
What else did I mess up? I'm looking over the notes here.
Nah, it's fine. That was basically it.
I feel like we had more that we were going to talk about with Lucy, but it just wasn't coming to me. Like I made up that whole thing about the computer terminal on the fly. As I was saying it, I realized what I was saying, and then you were like, "Oh wait, computers," and I was like, "Shoot, how do I cover this one?"
No, you did a really good job there. I was gonna say like that was a good little side thing because we got to go on. We got to throw in the whole like 8.5-inch floppy drive thing.
I also love that the partner in Lucy's partner was not Irish in our original notes.
No, not at all.
I just decided on that one on my own.
That was definitely a yes and moment. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is when I post this, I'm gonna say like, oh man, I'm gonna post on Twitter like, oh man, I got behind and I had to. It took me a little longer than usual to process this episode, and so I couldn't get it out on Saturday, but I got it out on Monday. So Monday's the 1st.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's the plan. You should on Twitter when I post about it on Monday, you should say something about me not being late with the processing or something like that, just to underline it.
Will do.
Excellent.
I'm probably also going to link to it with some vague statement about, for anyone that ever wanted to read the original novel that led to the show MacGyver.
Oh no, I mean that's what I'm going to post. I'm going to post it on Twitter like, hey, this, because I usually post something on like Monday or Saturday. I usually post something on Saturday and then something else on Monday. But like this time I'll just post on Monday. So like, man, I totally ran out of time to process this, so this episode's a little bit late. Sorry guys. But this is us talking about the basis book for the MacGyver show from the 80s, and then you should like, and I'll of course tag you in it, and then you should be like, yeah, you usually get these on Saturdays. I'll be like, yeah, I know, I had too much to do this weekend. We can make a little like comment chain that lends a little bit credibility to it. It'll work. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I feel like that went way better than I thought it would.
Like,
I was looking at the notes.
I thought we were going to run out of stuff quickly, and like we managed to draw it out to an hour and a half, and it's perfect. So with that, I think we can say goodbye for this week. Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair podcast. I'm Rudy.
Yes, I'm Justin.
And we are out. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.